Every month for 25 years, my husband's illness revealed a hidden, touching surprise that transformed our family forever. Ellen could never quite describe the feeling of dread that settled in her chest every month as the calendar ticked toward the mysterious days when Tom would retreat. Each time, it was like clockwork, the same shadows settling over their modest home in Oklahoma, muting the sunlight spilling through the windows. She understood the need for privacy. Everyone in town had an opinion regarding their peculiar family life, and she loathed the whispers that sliced through her insides. "What's wrong with Tom?" they'd inquire, the unspoken suggestion that perhaps she herself was the problem, grating on her nerves. Yet as she engrossed herself in lesson plans for her third graders, who relied on her each day to juggle arithmetic and reading with vibrant enthusiasm, her personal saga was quiet, consumed with veiled frustration and fear. The weight of societal expectations pressed down upon her shoulders, suffocating her from all corners. Her own children, Luke and Anna, sensed the tension, and Ellen did her best to shield their young minds from the truth. Their father struggled beneath an invisible burden, rendering him a ghost within the walls of their home each month. As she prepared enriching lessons on civilizations for her students, all she could think of was her husband's pallid face as she coaxed him into bed, knowing he was fighting battles unseen. Tom's health scare just last week had sent her into a spiral. It felt as if the walls were closing in, the very fabric of her identity, mother, teacher, wife, tugged at the seams. Her resolve was simmering, pushing her to confront Tom one more time, to demand he seek help when she returned from work. The doctor's unexpected revelations kept echoing in her mind, the words weaving through her thoughts like a harmful refrain. Hereditary mental health struggles. Why hadn't he told her? Ellen's days transformed into a tightrope walk, emotions tugging her between sympathy for her husband and raw anger that he never shared this crippling truth. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As her thoughts swirled, hysteria crept in as Luke and Anna's letters arrived lifelike and raw. They expressed their own journeys influenced by Tom's silence, revealing bright dreams of advocating for mental health awareness. An undeniable weight settled in Ellen's chest. They yearned to break the silence that had enveloped their father. Yet as she read their insights, her heart waged a battle between hope and dread. Would Tom find the courage to step into the light they envisioned, or would he retreat deeper into the shadows, chasing the fragile grasp of masculinity that often festered in their tight-knit town? Time pressed on, and with each tick of the clock, Ellen's trepidation swelled. Would Tom finally confront the truth of his inheritance, or remain trapped in the web of shame that marked her nights with whispers of uncertainty? With the shadows drawing nearer, the ultimate question loomed like an upheaval. Can vulnerability become their greatest strength, or will Tom slip away into that unyielding night once more? Ellen awoke the next morning with a sense of renewed determination that felt foreign yet exhilarating. The shadows of the previous night lingered in her mind, but there was a flicker of resolve burning bright within her chest. Today, she would finally address Tom's retreat. Today, she would unlock the door to the conversation that had been barricaded for so long. She sensed that everything depended on this moment. As she prepared breakfast, the scent of pancakes filled the air, almost masking the unnerving silence that usually enveloped their home during the mornings when Tom withdrew. She called for him, but her voice echoed back unanswered. The kids were still asleep, which meant she had to act quickly. She poured herself a cup of coffee and sat at their small kitchen table, thoughts racing through her mind like a whirlwind. What if confronting Tom pushed him deeper into his shell? What if he recoiled at the suggestion of seeking help? These questions clawed at her confidence, but she recognized an undeniable truth amidst the chaos. The conversation had to happen. After everything that lay beneath their surface, ignoring Tom's unwillingness to confront his reality had become an act of complicity. How long could they endure this cycle? Ellen busily shuffled lesson plans for her students, barely focused on the task at hand. As the hours passed, her heart raced, feeling as if they were already entangled in the throes of a critical moment. Just as the school bell rang, signaling the start of the day, she made her decision. After classes, she would confront Tom. Throughout the day, Ellen struggled to maintain the composure her students expected. She tossed aside distractions to focus wholly on their needs, but her mind tangled with thoughts of Tom, fears and hopes weaving together as she decorated their classroom with cheerful drawings inspired by the ancient civilizations she loved to teach. That afternoon, she returned home, finding Tom slumped on the couch, staring blankly at the television, lost in a world of static noise. His gaze seemed distant, shrouded by a cloud of invisible weight. Ellen's breath caught in her throat. The moment felt monumental. She had envisioned countless ways to initiate the conversation, but facing him now rendered her thoughts a chaotic muddle. "Tom," she called out gently, aware of the tenuousness of her approach. She stepped closer, the lamp's glow catching the contours of his downturned face. He slowly turned to her, his expression obscured, but parting slightly, as if recognizing the gravity of this moment. Ellen fought the urge to break eye contact, but the vulnerability bulging from his gaze made her heart ache. Could he feel her resolve? "I need to talk to you," she said, trying to keep her voice steady though uncertainty gnawed at her edges. Tom's brow furrowed, and she saw him brace himself, the tension swirling between them more palpable than she had imagined. "What is it?" he asked, his voice distant. Ellen took a deep breath, steadying herself before laying bare her thoughts. "I know you have been struggling. We can't keep waiting for it to just change. There's help out there, Tom. You don't have to face this alone anymore." As she spoke, she watched for signs of a retreat, yet something unexpected pulsed in Tom's eyes. A flicker of recognition? Maybe even acceptance? Or was it fear? Each word she spoke felt like chiseling their way through years of silence, each syllable resonating with the promise of liberation. She could sense the weight of unspoken truths gathered in the ominous air between them. "Do you even understand what's at stake here?" Tom finally replied, his voice snapping like a taut string. "You think I want to feel like this?" The confrontation had ignited, but Ellen could feel the tension diffusing in the air, revealing a raw nerve exposed. She could not let the moment slip away. "Then let's confront it together," she implored. "Let's not just exist in the shadows anymore. Let your voice be heard." Tom's walls seemed to falter, and he hesitated, as though caught between instinct and desire, a crossroads of struggle and support. The journey toward realization had just begun, yet the shadows still lingered. Ellen's heart buzzed with both fear and anticipation. Would this conversation forge a new path or plunge them deeper into silence? The answers loomed, just out of reach. What would Tom reveal about himself, the man behind the illness, or the ghost that had haunted their lives? The atmosphere in the room hung thick with tension, and for a moment, everything outside of their small bubble faded into insignificance. Ellen's mind raced. Tom's question lingered, reverberating in her thoughts. Did she truly understand? Did anyone? As she stared into his eyes, she found herself grappling with greater questions, questions of not only his struggle, but her own relentlessness in trying to bridge the gap that had widened between them. He remained silent, nebulous emotions dancing across his face. Ellen's heart quickened, hurtling her forward. "Let me in, Tom," she whispered, feeling a tremor in her voice. "I'm not here to blame you. I want to help, but we can't fight this alone." Tom's gaze wavered, flickering like a candle threatened by a gust of wind. She noticed the glint of tears threatening to spill over, and it struck her how long she had craved this moment, not just to confront him, but to reach out, truly reach out, and meet him at his depths of despair. Her own vulnerabilities flashed before her. The countless nights spent wondering what she could do differently, the pressure of maintaining a facade of normalcy for their children, and the gnawing fear of losing not just him, but the foundational pillar of their family. "I'm scared too," she admitted, feeling the words escape her and realizing it had taken her this long to utter them out loud. "Scared of what?" Tom challenged, deflecting. "Scared of losing you and of what our life could become if we fail to fight this together." Tom turned his gaze to the floor, the weight of her admission hanging in the air. Silence stretched between them, thick enough to cut. Ellen seized the moment, knowing she couldn't yield now. "Please talk to me. You've been cloaked in this for so long that we've lost sight of each other." His breath hitched, and for a fraction of a second, she saw it, the tiniest of cracks in that armor he wore. I don't know how," Tom finally whispered, his voice barely audible. The admission felt like an earthquake, shifting their foundation. Ellen felt an unexpected rush of compassion. "Then let's start right here," she urged. "We can learn how together. This doesn't have to be your burden alone." She reached for his hand, an overture. Her palms felt clammy, but she held on, offering comfort in the vast chasm of uncertainty that surrounded them. Something flickered in his eyes, a spark of defiance or acceptance. It was a glimmer of the man she had once known. "You really think we can fix this?" he asked, skepticism wrapping around his words like barbed wire. "I know we can, step by step. But to do so, you have to let go of the fear of facing it. We need to embrace the possibility of hope," she responded earnestly. As he absorbed her words, Ellen felt her own resolve strengthen. She had taken the first step by confronting her fear head-on, and now it was on him to decipher the roadmap of healing and hope together. "Let's figure it out, Tom. We can find a therapist, or I can join a support group. Just promise me you'll try." He hesitated, and Ellen felt her heart race as the moments ticked away like grains of sand. "What if I can't change?" Ellen squeezed his hand harder, her eyes fierce with determination. "What if you can?" Tom's breath caught as he raised his gaze, and in that shared silence, a flicker of something shifted between them, maybe even a sudden awareness of potential ready to emerge. But still, they weren't out of the woods. The weight of years spent in silence wouldn't unravel so easily. Ellen felt new uncertainties creep in. Would Tom's willingness to confront his fears last, or would the comfort of retreat lure him back? The shadows loomed but shifted slightly, revealing the contours of a path edged in light. As they stayed locked in that fraught exchange of vulnerability and courage, Ellen understood instinctively that though they had turned a corner, the road ahead lay fraught with challenges. Her heart pounded with the thought of what faced them next, but it was nothing compared to the exhilaration of moving forward. However, she couldn't shake off the feeling that something deeper lurked beneath the surface, a revelation waiting to unveil itself, perhaps even a comfort she hadn't yet imagined. As the evening wore on, she suddenly wondered what Tom truly feared losing most, the life they had built together or the potential of forging a new, uncharted future. And as she processed these thoughts, her heart raced with an unsettling anticipation, brimming with hope, but still wrestling with uncertainty. Would they find a way to sustain this newfound courage? And what would it require of each of them to truly embrace the change that was looming closer every day? Ellen awoke the next morning, the muted sunlight filtering through the curtains, illuminating the room with a soft, hopeful glow. The previous night's conversation echoed in her mind, a persistent reminder of the emotional cliff they were teetering upon. As she quickly dressed, she found herself obsessively reviewing each moment in her head, dissecting their words like a surgeon preparing for a critical procedure. Yet beneath the layers of anxiety lay a burgeoning sense of empowerment. For the first time in years, she had articulated her fears, shedding the weight of silent suffering. Ellen grabbed her phone, navigating through contacts until she landed on her therapist's name, gently pressing her fingertips against the screen. The past year of counseling had given her tools, but using them felt like preparing for an expedition into uncharted territory. After a deep breath, she dialed the number. The voice on the other end felt grounded, a lifeline in an ocean of uncertainty. As she spoke with the therapist, her resolve hardened. I need to find a support group. I can't be the only one facing this. The therapist's encouragement felt like a validation, and the conversation ignited a spark within her. She hung up with a clearer vision. If she could seek help, so could Tom. Sitting at the kitchen table later, she glanced at the empty chair across from her, an unsettling reminder of how far they had drifted apart. She recalled his skepticism, that sliver of doubt that clutched at his spirit. They would need to confront not only their current turmoil, but also the unaddressed wounds of the past. Ellen's motivation to facilitate a change transformed into a keening determination. As the day pressed forward, Ellen began mapping potential changes. Her obsessive list-making soon spiraled into action plans, a sequence of steps designed for both her growth and Tom's recovery. Should she offer individual therapy options alongside couples counseling? Should she encourage creative classes that might rekindle their passion? The rhythm of purpose fueled her, a comforting cadence centering on healing and renewal. By the time Tom returned home that evening, she felt a sense of vertigo and exhilaration intertwining. He stepped through the door. She rehearsed the conversation they would have, the tangible plans resting like promises between them. "Hey, I've been thinking," she started, her voice quavering slightly, but the words steadied as they poured out. "I spoke to my therapist today. I want to make some changes for us. There's a support group that I found and—" Tom's brow furrowed, and the skepticism returned swiftly, smothering her burgeoning hope. "Ellen, it's not that simple. You can't just schedule therapy and expect it to work. I don't know if I can really face this." There it was, the familiar retreat. Ellen felt a thunderclap of frustration rumble within her. She wasn't expecting easy acceptance, but why couldn't he understand the necessity of lifting the fog obscuring their lives? "It is simple, Tom," she asserted, her voice growing firmer. "It starts with acknowledging that we can't keep ignoring the truth of where we are. We have to face it." Silence enveloped them, heavy and dense. She saw a flicker of recognition in Tom's eyes, perhaps a glint of realization about the intensity of their situation. Ellen's heart raced, but also sank under the weight of the reality. They needed more than hope. They had to dismantle old fears, confront past mistakes, and build something new piece by piece. "Ellen," he began, hesitation lingering on his lips, as if he, too, was weighing the gravity of her words. "Just promise me you'll consider it," she interrupted, desperation creeping into her tone. He hesitated again, and within that lengthy pause, Ellen recognized a truth that allayed some of her fears. Change required discomfort, a reckoning with inner demons that would rear their heads. But they wouldn't be alone in this. The entire journey would demand both vulnerability and courage. As Tom finally nodded, a cascade of chills washed over her. Sudden excitement tempered with anxiety. They were on the verge of a profound reckoning, yet the depths of transformation still loomed ahead, enigmatic and daunting. The humanity behind change felt within reach, but precipitated by an arrival she could not predict. Tom opened his mouth to speak, and Ellen sensed he was about to share something pivotal. She leaned in, breath hitching with trepidation and anticipation. waiting to hear the words that might shift their realities once more. However, just as Tom began, the doorbell rang, echoing through the tense air between them. Ellen turned sharply, instincts bristling. Who could interrupt now? The moment felt too pivotal, a turning point brimming with potential, unfinished. The uncertainty tensed the air like a storm, hovering just above the horizon, threatening to alter everything once more. Ellen's heart raced as she glanced at Tom, whose expression was a mix of annoyance and curiosity, an echo of shared uncertainty hanging thick in the air. The doorbell rang again, more insistent this time, as if the world outside demanded their attention at the most inopportune moment. Her instincts screamed for her to ignore it, to focus on the unspoken words that hung between them. Surely, nothing could matter more than this pivotal moment of introspection, could it? She made the decision to answer, though a part of her hoped it wasn't a diversion, a test of her newly found resolve. As she reached for the door, Ellen took one last glance at Tom, his face a canvas of conflicting emotions. She opened the door, and the chill of the late afternoon air brushed against her skin, bringing with it an unexpected visitor. It was Maeve, their neighbor, holding a plate of freshly baked cookies, her usual bright smile wide and erratic in the mood setting between Ellen and Tom. "Oh, I thought I'd bring these over to share. I know you've both been going through a rough patch," Maeve said, eyes darting between them, swiftly realizing the tension. Ellen's facade of politeness almost crumbled at the sight of her well-meaning intrusion. It was a thoughtful gesture, but it felt utterly inadequate for the weight of transformation they were approaching. "Thank you, Maeve," Ellen managed, her voice strained but polite. She could see Tom's shoulders ease slightly, even in the strange awkwardness that accompanied Maeve's visit. The cookies almost felt like a distraction, sweet morsels in the face of sour conversations. As Ellen accepted the plate, she felt a surge of frustration. Their progress was at stake. The cookie jar glimmered with the promise of comfort, but how could she face it when monumental decisions loomed unaddressed? Ellen caught Tom's eye, his own gears turning. We really appreciate it, but we were in the middle of something important." The tentative tone in Tom's voice took her by surprise, a reluctant yet assertive request for privacy woven with sincerity. "I know, and I should probably leave you two alone. Just wanted to let you know I'm here if you need anything," Maeve replied softly, backing up with an uneasy smile, oblivious to the revelations that were about to unfold between Ellen and Tom. As the door swung shut, the relief mingled with unease settled in the room. The tension didn't dissipate. Instead, it lingered, now tinged with a renewed urgency. Ellen's hands trembled slightly, the cookie plate feeling heavier than before. It was a symbol of normalcy, but she craved authenticity, the rawness of their conversation, the confrontation of their fears. "Okay, let's talk," she said decisively, plopping the cookies onto the table and signaling a shift. "What did you want to say?" Tom looked taken aback for a moment, but then his gaze softened as he seemed to search for words. "I want you to know I'm scared, Ellen. This is all I've known for years, the way we've coped. Facing it feels dangerous." The truth of his confession struck a deeper chord. Ellen recognized his vulnerability, finally seeing his hesitation not as a retreat, but a plea for understanding. There was terror in dismantling their fragile systems, but this was where rebirth could happen. "I'm scared too, Tom, but staying here in silence is scarier." Her voice wavered, slightly, but each word gained momentum, fueled by newfound courage. "We have to engage in this fight together, even if it feels like we're losing everything first." He nodded slowly, and Ellen's heart surged with cautious optimism. Could that shared fear fuel a connection rather than tear them apart? She was determined to find out, but a knot of uncertainty twisted in her gut. A bead of sweat trickled down her back. It was not just the heat of the moment, but the realization that the battle wouldn't be easily won. They would have to unpack years of unvoiced truths, the small resentments, the sacrifices, the hidden pains. The uncertainty of where this journey would lead loomed dauntingly, yet Ellen felt a flicker of determination to face it. Whatever lay ahead would force them to confront a deeper narrative, that their story hadn't merely flattened into a series of avoidance, but had incredible potential for restoration. They had begun this process by stepping into their vulnerabilities. But just as she was about to voice that determination, the doorbell rang again, jolting her back to the reality of unending interruptions. Ellen turned to Tom, seeing the flicker of irritation cross his face. This was not just a mundane inconvenience, it was an omen, a reminder that even in a moment of growth, complications would arise. Ellen edged toward the door, heart hammering, already suspecting that the next surprise awaiting her would put yet another challenge on the table, one that could either jeopardize their tentative truce or propel them deeper into the core of their struggles. What lay behind that door could either fracture their nascent hopes or fortify them. Would they be ready to confront whatever awaited them? The air crackled with the promise of change, but could they rise to meet it? Ellen hesitated before the door, her breath caught somewhere between anticipation and dread. Each ring echoed the complexities of her relationship with Tom. She felt an overwhelming surge of emotions, fear of disruption, eagerness for resolution, and an insatiable curiosity about what lay beyond that threshold. With a deep resolve, she swung the door open, bracing herself for whatever revelation awaited her. The sight that greeted her was not what she expected. A tall figure stood there, worn yet familiar, a face from a different chapter of their lives. It was Janet, Tom's estranged sister, brought together by an unseen force. Ellen had only met her once, at the family holiday gathering where laughter clashed with tension, a reminder of unhealed fractures. "Ellen," Janet's voice was shaky, betraying an urgency that took Ellen by surprise. "I need to speak with Tom. It's important." "Tom isn't," Ellen started, but something in Janet's eyes, a mix of desperation and pleading, stopped her. Without fully understanding why, Ellen stepped aside, letting Janet through. Tom's startled expression mirrored Ellen's own incredulity. "Janet," he breathed, a heap of emotions surfacing as he faced his sister. Ellen observed the shift in his demeanor, the tension of the past compressed into a fragile moment. Would this be another complication? Or could it serve as a catalyst for healing? "Can we talk?" Janet asked, her voice barely a whisper, loaded with unspoken histories. Ellen felt a twisting in her gut. This was unexpected, yet the undercurrent of necessity rippled through the room. She saw how Tom's defenses were wavering, unsteady as the past collided with the present. Ellen glanced at Tom, seeking confirmation that they could navigate this new obstacle together. In that fleeting moment, a pact seemed to form between them, rooted in unvoiced support and the desire for transformation. "Yeah, sure," Tom finally spoke, his voice steadier now. "Let's talk." Ellen retreated to the periphery, unsure of her role in this conversation. Tom and Janet moved to the couch, exchanging glances that carried both conflict and an almost magnetic pull of reconciliation. Ellen tucked herself into a corner of the room, her pulse thrumming in her ears. The weight of their dialogue hung heavy in the air, punctuated by long silences, hesitant words, and the occasional tremor of emotion. In those moments, Ellen couldn't ignore the evolution happening between Tom and Janet. They began to unpack their collective grief, the shadows of their childhood echoing with painful honesty. Tom's acceptance of his sister's reappearance overrode his lingering resentment, reflecting a willingness to embrace vulnerability. Ellen watched, torn between feeling like an outsider and an integral part of this momentous occasion. How could their shared confrontation of the past, filled with fear, sadness, and hurt, be reframed into a vessel of healing? Did facing shared burdens indicate strength or unraveling? Suddenly, Tom's voice rose above the tension. You have no idea how much I've missed you. I thought we were beyond repair, that I could never face you again. The atmosphere shifted, a chance for familial bonds to mend. Janet's eyes softened. Facing our reality has been harder than I admitted. I never wanted to hurt you, Tom. I just didn't know how to reach out. As tears glistened in her eyes, Ellen felt a pang of empathy. Tom's healing journey was intertwined with this unexpected reunion. The potency of emotional growth shimmered around them, a testament to facing traumas head-on. Ellen's thoughts spiraled into reflection. What if confronting their shared narratives could catalyze deeper connections? But beneath the warmth of those realizations, a fog of uncertainty loomed. The risks of revisiting old wounds threatened to shroud their progress. As the siblings talked, Ellen's mind raced. Was she ready to confront her own past? What hidden truths lay buried beneath her surface? A gnawing curiosity pierced through her uncertainty. She recalled her insights about vulnerability and awakening. Could she, too, reclaim fragmented pieces of her identity? The space crackled with emotional electricity. But as Ellen listened to the raw, honest words being exchanged, she felt increasingly anchored in her own self-worth. This was no longer just about Tom's relationship with his sister. It was about her own evolution, intertwined within this intricate tapestry of human connection. But as the conversation took a turn toward a broader topic, a shared family secret, one that promised revelation and deeper ramifications, the doorbell rang once more, this time with an air of finality. Ellen exchanged glances with Tom, sensing an impending storm or an opportunity she hadn't anticipated. Whatever waited beyond that door could either unravel their moment of reckoning or solidify the roots of their transformation. Could they endure yet another test of their resolve? Would they be prepared to confront whatever lay ahead? The questions lingered, pregnant with potential answers. Ellen's heart raced as she approached the door again, a sense of foreboding curling in her stomach. The air crackled with unresolved emotions and unspoken truths, and she could feel the tension in the room shifting, ready to break under the weight of what lay ahead. She exchanged a quick glance with Tom, who remained rooted to the spot, a mixture of apprehension and hope swirling in his eyes. With a trembling hand, Ellen turned the doorknob. The sudden gust of wind flaring into the room felt like nature's own cautionary signal. Standing on the threshold was a weathered man, his demeanor weary yet familiar. It took a moment for Ellen to recognize him. It was David, Tom's father, another complication from the past. "Tom," David said, barely masking the strain in his voice, "I heard about Janet being back in town. We need to talk." Ellen stepped back, suddenly aware of how seamlessly the complexities of their histories intertwined. She watched as Tom's body tense, the lines of discomfort etching deep into his brow. This was not merely about Janet. This new entrance turned the reunion into a tableau of family reunion riddled with unresolved tensions. "Now?" Tom shot back, his voice edged with disbelief. "After all these years, and you show up like nothing's ever happened?" David looked as if he had aged a decade since their last encounter. "I know it's sudden, but I think it's time to air things out. We can't keep living in the past like this." Ellen, now standing just beyond the fray, felt the urge to intervene. This was her moment, as if the unfolding drama craved her participation. But was she truly ready? Torn between Tom's anguish and the chaotic potential of new truths, she wrestled with the impulse to assert herself closer to the precarious center of this family storm. The desire to protect Tom was strong, yet she recognized the opportunity for growth, both for him and herself. "Dad," Tom's voice softened, a complex mix of hurt and understanding. "You can't just break into our lives and expect everything to be fine. We need to process what you've done." "I know, and I'm not here to make excuses," David said, his deep-set eyes shimmering with vulnerability. "I regret every moment I wasn't there, but I need you to hear me out, for all our sakes." Ellen's instincts flared. The man who stood before them might embody the past, but could he also be a herald of change? The inner turmoil she and Tom had just begun to navigate appeared ready to spill into a fierce confrontation. Should she facilitate healing or step back to let family ties fray even more painfully? As if sensing her conflict, Tom's gaze shifted to her for a moment. A silent plea and question mingled together. Did he want her to intervene? Did he want her to help steer the direction of this unwelcome confrontation? The room was charged with a collective breath, histories ready to be unveiled. Ellen thought about her own struggles with vulnerability. Perhaps this was symbolic of her fight to reclaim her narrative. Would she stand up and act, shaping her role in this story, or remain a bystander while the characters danced to the rhythm of their own conflicts? She planted her feet and straightened her shoulders, drawing strength from the moment. We all deserve honesty, even in its rawest form, she found herself asserting, surprising even herself with the firmness of her voice. If it's time to talk, let's make it count. The atmosphere shifted, a palpable change bearing witness to newfound resolve. Tom nodded, an inkling of respect flickering in his eyes. David looked at her, astonishment evident. Was this the turning point she'd longed for? Not only for Tom, but for himself. Then David took a breath, shifting heavily from one side to another as he prepared to delve into buried truths. Ellen felt the overwhelming pull of the moment, realizing she had crossed an invisible threshold. But just as he opened his mouth to speak, the sound of muffled voices echoed from behind David. Ellen's pulse quickened again. The storm was not done yet. Whether this intrusion would galvanize their moment for liberation or plunge them deeper into chaos loomed uncertainly, vibrant with possibilities. What new challenges awaited them? And how would Ellen navigate the labyrinth of her own emotions in this unfolding drama? As the tension thrummed in the air, one thing became increasingly clear. Discovery was looming, and transformation beckoned just beyond the threshold. Ellen's senses heightened as she focused on the disrupted moment. The muffled voices behind David grew louder, a cacophony of urgency that both confused and intrigued her. She glanced at Tom, whose face had shifted from rage to something like curiosity, despite the surrounding turmoil. David, still poised to speak, appeared more unsettled than before. "Who else is here?" Tom finally demanded. Breaking through the tension, it was as if the weight of their family's secrets could only bear so much pressure before it threatened to explode. "Laura's here too," David said, his voice struggling to maintain an air of calm. "Her meeting got done earlier, and she wanted to—" Before he could finish, Laura emerged, her vibrant presence contrasting with the somber atmosphere. "I didn't mean to interrupt, but I heard enough to know I needed to be here," she declared, her voice steady yet delicate, creating a bridge across the emotional chasm in the room. Ellen felt a flicker of apprehension. Laura was Tom's younger sister, emblematic of hope and warmth amidst their estrangement from David. Owning her own relational struggles, Ellen recognized that Laura could either ease the mounting tension or add to it with her own unresolved feelings about her father. "Yeah, well, welcome to the party," Tom snapped, his defenses reared high. Ellen felt his body encase in armor, ready to deflect any emotional attacks as he tightened his fists. "Tom," Laura interjected gently, "this isn't just about Dad. We're all here to sort through our feelings about each other." The insistence in her voice was palpable as she glanced at Ellen, a silent ally in this familial confrontation. "I don't need a family therapy session," Tom shot back, pushing against the potential for reconciliation. "What I need is for you to own your failures, Dad." The accusation hung thick in the air, raw and unvarnished. Ellen's mind raced. The fabric of Tom's identity was woven from years of anger and disappointment. She understood that these emotions weren't just walls, they were protective barriers built against vulnerability. With each confrontation between Tom and David, she sensed an opportunity for both of them, but recognizing it was one thing, taking action was another. "Maybe you owe it to him and yourself to listen," Ellen finally dared to say, her voice steady despite the intensity swirling around her. "This isn't just about blaming each other. It's about understanding who we are." Tom's gaze snapped to her, disbelief flashing across his features. A turf war was brewing, emotional stakes higher than any legal document she had ever navigated as an attorney. Yet she felt a surge of resolve. This was a turning point. They were perched on the edge of pivotal changes in their lives, each holding a piece of the puzzle they had yet to solve. David looked at her, perhaps rediscovering a glimmer of hope, or a realization of the depth of his failures. "I know I haven't earned your trust, Tom, or yours, Ellen," he breathed, voice trembling slightly. "But I need both of you to give me a chance to explain." Every heartbeat in the room seemed synchronized with the weight of his words. Ellen understood there was power in what lay unspoken, the emotions crawling beneath their protests. Every person here was shaped by Tom's anger and David's absence. But her question remained. Would they dare to confront their fears? Seeing David and Tom locked in an emotional standoff, her instincts nudged her forward. The moment was a training ground where clarifying truths could annihilate preconceived notions. "Let's take it piece by piece," she suggested, stepping closer to the fire that hadn't yet scorched her. "Each of us speaks truthfully," she planned to propose, "without curtains. It could be the foundation we need to rebuild, if we're willing." Silence enveloped them as each of their collective breaths bridged honor and uncertainty. The profound weight of their silence hinted at an intersection. Could they reconstruct their familial structure, or would this standoff become another fracture? Just as David began to nod, collecting his thoughts, a familiar voice pierced the air. Again from outside, a wild, familiar laughter that jolted Ellen into reality. Every head turned as they recognized the unmistakable sound of Janet, the very name that had turned their lives upside down not long ago. What disruption was she about to impose now, and how would it complicate this fleeting moment of mutual understanding? Ellen's pulse quickened, caught between fear and anticipation. What intention swirled behind that laughter? And how much longer could they delay confronting interactions that seemed to run deeper than mere surface-level grievances? The unraveling mystery loomed ever closer, and Ellen felt the tightrope she walked sway precariously. Would they be ready for the revelations that awaited them? Ellen's heart raced as her gaze drifted toward the door, where Janet's laughter echoed through the air, a sound she had barely begun to process, but which now felt like an incoming tide that threatened to drown the fragile moment they had just begun to build. The tension instantly heightened, shifting from an introspective inquiry about self and familial roles to an impending showdown with the disruptive force of Janet. Janet was not just a name. She was a specter from the past, wrapped in layers of complicated history that could not be ignored. The bravado in her laughter contrasted sharply with the heavy atmosphere in the room, as if she were unaware of the emotional wreckage lingering just beneath the surface. "Ellen, are you all right?" David's voice broke through her encroaching anxiety, his concern genuine yet laced with urgency. "Yeah, Her words trailed off. The dilemma of addressing the uninvited guest on the horizon wrestled with the pressing need to delve deeper into the resolution they desperately needed. The pull of maintaining focus on the familial crisis weighed heavily on her, but Janet's presence loomed like a fog that could linger indefinitely. Before she could muster further thoughts, the door swung open, and Janet stepped into the room, her vibrant energy swimming against the tide of discontent. "Oh, there you all are! I thought I'd missed the fun." She grinned, oblivious to the shared silence that followed each of her footsteps. Ellen's mind swirled with conflicting reactions. Janet's arrival was troublesome. It threatened to dismantle the fragile advancements they had achieved in confronting their collective pain. But could this disruption also be an opportunity? Could it unveil hidden truths that resided within each family member? "Janet, not now," Tom grumbled, irritation etching lines across his forehead. "Why ever not? I'm here to help." Her tone was light, yet Ellen could sense the undertone of defensiveness. It seemed Janet viewed intrusion as an expression of familial support, neglecting the boundaries that had been painstakingly established. Ellen remained quiet, seeking clarity amid the noise, and felt the intensity of the moment refract through her. Here she was, caught between prompt reconciliation and the potential chaos Janet could incite. Closing her eyes for a brief moment, Ellen summoned her internal voice. Today's confrontation would require a strategy that balanced honesty with discretion. Life has a funny way of mixing everything together, doesn't it? She spoke suddenly, directing her words toward Janet with intentionality, as if to draw her into the circle of urgency in the room. Maybe today's not just about the past. Maybe it's also about allowing revelations that could shape our futures. The comment landed softly, but the room crackled with palpable tension. Each family member turned towards her, surprise spread across their faces. She had effectively opened a door, perhaps not all the way, but enough to let them consider the implications that both current and historical dynamics could generate. David appeared slightly baffled, yet beneath his confusion a spark ignited. His eyes flicked to Janet, then back to Ellen, as if he were trying to decipher the avenue Ellen had opened. "Maybe it's true," he murmured, a small swell of hope rising in his chest. "Janet, you might have something to offer today." A moment of surprise washed over Janet, her expression faltering in the wake of David's unexpected support. But Ellen could see the gears turning, watching as Janet processed David's words. The room remained tense, but there was a shift, a subtle opening beckoning them all to engage. Ellen took a cautious breath. Each person present was teetering on another precipice. The intertwining of their narratives had the power to elevate or disrupt the fragile connection they were attempting to rebuild. Would they embrace this opportunity for catharsis, or would the reappearance of past wounds drive them further apart? Ellen understood now that her role had evolved. She was not merely a mediator, but a catalyst for change. Whatever would happen next, they were on the brink of revelations. Janet might provide the chaotic but needed energy to breach the fortress of their unresolved tensions. As the weight of expectation settled heavily among them, Ellen readied herself to absorb whatever chaos Janet would unearth, knowing it could either catalyze their healing or plunge them into deeper conflict. The stakes were rising, but she could no longer hesitate. The question echoed in her mind. In confronting their painful histories, could they envision a future free from the shackles of unresolved conflict? Or would Janet's presence merely serve to resurrect old ghosts, tearing them further apart? Ellen braced herself, determined to confront this new layer of chaos, knowing that some catalysts lead to destruction, while others profoundly alter the course of their deepest relationships. And just as she prepared to guide them through yet another storm, a new voice called from the darkness, a voice none of them anticipated, but one they would soon have to reckon with. Ellen stood at the precipice of an emotional maelstrom as she looked through the doorway at the unexpected arrival, and then, beyond her, at a shadow slowly emerging from the dimness beyond the threshold. It was Eli, Tom's childhood friend, a ghost from the past who symbolized a time when Tom had still been vibrant and hopeful. Seeing Eli brought back a wave of memories, a cascade of younger Tom that seemed like another Tom.
Lifetime. Eli? Tom's voice trembled as he regarded his old friend, disbelief etched across his face, tugging at the fragile thread of resolve that had barely withstood the weight of the family drama unfolding around them. "Tom, Eli began, but his words were engulfed by the tension radiating from the small room. The air thickened, heavy with unspoken phrases and dizzying potential. Eli stepped further into the room, his presence both a balm and a bristling cord, daring Tom to engage with emotions long locked away. "What are you doing here?" Tom asked, the bitterness piercing through, as if Eli's example of moving forward made Tom's own stagnation feel unbearable. "I came to check on you," Eli said gently, allowing a window of familiarity to crack open. "I heard about your struggles. I wanted to help, not upset anything." The shadow of Tom's barriers started to quiver at the edges as familiar gazes met across the years. Ellen observed this interaction with apprehensive anticipation, recognizing the potential for Tom to unlock yet further dimensions of his pain. "Help?" Tom spat. "You don't understand what it's been like for me. You left, Eli. You didn't even say goodbye." "Tom, I didn't leave you. I left because I was struggling too," Eli countered, the sadness in his voice resonating with a truth that cut past lingering resentments. "I came back because I realized this life, it's not one we can do alone. We all need each other." Ellen felt the walls close in once more, yet she also felt embers of possibility flicker in the room. Could this be a chance for Tom to realize that healing could indeed be communal, despite the reticence? "Maybe it's time," she found herself interjecting, feeling the urgency crack like thunder in the air. "Tom, addressing all of your pains together might just allow you to step out of that fog you're trapped in." In the thrum of tension, a small voice in her mind whispered, "In facing everything you fear and confronting it head on, you can start fresh." She thought, however naive, that this small gathering could spur connections they'd all long neglected, whether familial or friendly. Perhaps there was still a chance to mend the fabric of their lives. With a deep breath, Ellen stepped closer. "Each person here has lived their own struggles, but has made it through, willing to bear witness to yours. There can be strength in this chaos, Tom. Your truth needs to surface." Tom's brow furrowed, and Ellen braced to see the flicker of anger rise again, but instead it remained muted. She could see Eli's presence swaying him toward vulnerability. The trident of support between Janet, Eli, and Ellen energized him, forming an unshakable circle within which shame dissipated, revealing something raw and essential, a longing for belonging. "Maybe I do need to face this," Tom's voice wavered, carrying deep within it the tremors of shackles cracking. "But can I really?" Ellen's heart quickened, her desire to assist him
grew fiercer than before. "You can, and we will. I believe in you, Tom." A moment captured in resolve and vulnerability passed between them, Tom's defenses yielding for the first time in years. Just as they felt the chronology of the past relaxing, an unexpected warmth washed over the room, a rare commingling of forgotten joy meeting the weight of reality. The pieces, scattered across years of distance and resentment, felt poised for reassembly. "Let's share everything we've kept hidden," Janet said quietly, her eyes glistening. "We might be surprised about what we can achieve together." Eli nodded in agreement, his presence affirming the sentiment, bold yet familiar, cloaked in an authenticity that invited others to draw near. Ellen felt a flush of confidence, as if the shift in the dynamic was a testament to what communal effort could yield. The ghosts of the past could guide them. It would not be easy, but for the first time in a long while, there was hope, not just for Tom, but for all of them. As they began to speak, each voice uniquely resonating through the air, Ellen felt the enormity of the burden Jack had carried slip slightly from her own shoulders. Each painful story unraveled just as tightly woven tales became entangled with fresh narratives of hope. There, in that moment, Ellen realized she had stepped from the shadows herself. She wasn't just a witness, she was now actively participating in their transformation. With every outpouring of vulnerability, Ellen felt lightness. She had shifted from anxiety to empowerment. It registered clearly. She had a voice, one worthy of being heard in the tapestry of struggle and recovery. They stood together, united in their convictions, in that space full of promise. And as the discussions deepened, layers of understanding blossomed, forging new relationships among old scars. Ellen closed her eyes momentarily, reliving every instance of hardship that once felt insurmountable. Spiritually, she had crossed the river of her own struggles alongside Tom. The realization lit the path ahead with uncharted brilliance. When Ellen opened her eyes again, she felt transformed, full of admiration for her own resolve and embracing the energy of the moment among her family. The patchwork of their histories could collide to bring forth a new beginning, and somewhere in that hopeful expanse lay the chance to operate without guilt, without the burdens from before. They would move forward together, not merely surviving, but growing, in fluctuating harmony, rekindling their strengths and clashing fears. She smiled faintly, recognizing the profound metamorphosis happening within her, more than she could have dared to articulate before today. They were shaping their destinies, redefining their paths from the ashes of pain. Now, more than ever, it resonated. Ellen was free to use her voice, confident in the truth she shared, standing anchor in the midst of their journey towards light. Ellen's transformation culminated in a sense of solidity. A power surged inside, a once hushed determination to embrace honesty and relish the journey of healing, forging a new narrative that would pair the past's weight with contemporary resilience. In that intimate moment of exchange, a new light flickered on. The shadows that once kept them from existing freely began to fall away. It was then they understood. To reap the bounty of renewal, they must unearth their stories together, no longer shrouded in darkness, but emboldened by truth, together stepping into a palpable future filled with hope. Their reconciliation marked the beginning, not just for Tom, but for all of them. The call to vulnerability yielded a symphony of voices blending into a telling song of healing, their past no longer defining them, but sculpting their emergence into something extraordinary. And as the echoes of each voice danced in harmony, Ellen found in herself the quiet assurance of life anew. The journey wasn't over, but she held every promise, every challenge still ahead, ready to embrace it all. Now it's your turn. We summon you, our cherished audience, to be part of this transformative journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It truly makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Your insights matter. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You have the power to spread this message of hope. This is the moment to show your support and join us in illuminating the path of transformation. Don't wait even one more second. Let's build a community united in growth and upliftment.